Welcome back to the Family Farms podcast. I'm Justin, and I'm joined, as always, by my lovely wife, Labrie.
Hey, everyone.
You know, it seems like when we look back on Monday, sometimes at first, I'm like, we didn't even do anything farm-related. There's nothing really to talk about farm-related, even though we've, of course, been keeping up with our chores and the other things that we do on the farm. It just feels like when we look back that there's not been that many things going on. But then the more time that I think about it, the more that I start to remember things that have happened and realize, oh, well, I guess there actually is things to talk about and subjects to get into, but it just doesn't feel like that.
Yeah, a lot of times, I guess maybe it's just because we're coming off of the weekend where, like, Saturday, yeah, we tend to get to do a lot of farm stuff, but then Sunday it's focused on church and family, and it's a whirlwind. And then we get to Monday and we restart our week.
Yeah, like the plan is always for Saturday to be the day that we do the most on the farm because that's obviously the day that we have the most time home together. But then, that didn't work out this weekend. And then at the same time, Sundays come and Sundays make it to where we don't have the time at home to do anything.
Yeah.
But there were still things that happened. One thing that's kind of weird is that I emailed a radio show about chicken. But there's a podcast that I listen to and they do a radio show, but they also do another thing that's just a podcast. And I was listening to it, and they got on the subject of food and how, well, it's kind of weird. So I didn't know this, but there's a thing called monkey labor. And if you're anything like me, that just sounds bizarre and you don't know what it is. But apparently, HelloFresh was accused of using monkey labor to get their coconut milk used for recipes. And monkey labor is where in some countries, they take monkeys and chain them and whip them and force them to climb up trees and throw down the coconuts for human consumption. Didn't realize that was a thing.
Yeah, completely blew my mind when you told me that.
Thankfully, we don't have to worry about that because we don't really use coconut milk for anything. That's not really our jam. But it was interesting nonetheless. But that led the lady into thinking about, like, well, she said that she wouldn't have used HelloFresh anymore if that was true, if those allegations were true. Apparently, HelloFresh claims that those are not true and that they have papers to prove that. That's not my thing. I don't know. That neither here nor there, but she said that she wouldn't have ate there anymore or used their product, anymore if they were doing that. But then that got her thinking about different things that she does eat and how are those animals being treated before they're processed, and like what's all going into her food. And so she dove down into the rabbit hole that a lot of people who raise food obviously have done because they understand where food comes from and want to change the way that they get their food. And like she started saying some things though that just didn't make sense.
Yeah, you were telling me that she said chickens, if left to their own devices, would only lay 10 eggs a year.
Yes.
Like, what in the world?
I don't know like where she was reading that, but people that know chicken breeds know that no matter how much, and part of her thing was that the chickens are confined to such amount of space that it causes them to lay more eggs or something like that. But as people in this world know, that's not true. I mean, if you don't know that, it doesn't matter how much space you give a chicken, little or a lot, it's going to lay the amount of eggs that breed is predispositioned to lay. Our chickens are in that like 100, 150 eggs a year range.
Yeah.
Other chickens like Rhode Island Reds, ISA Browns, Barred Rock, and several other breeds, they'll lay about 300 eggs per year. Those chickens are going to lay those 300 eggs regardless of how much space you give them. It's not bad for the chicken to lay 300 eggs. Those chickens are going to lay it because that's what they've been bred to do. It's selective breeding, just like what people have done with dogs to get different traits in dogs. Yep. It's the same thing that we've done with chickens over time. It's the same thing we've done with really every domesticated animal.
Yes.
It's been bred for certain traits. And so I had to write in and clarify that. I couldn't help myself.
This isn't a new practice. Like, this has been done forever.
Well, that's how wolves became dogs.
Yeah. Like, it's not like in the last, 20 years, someone decided to breed certain things together.
Actually, like there's most of the breeds that are like hundreds of years old and dogs and everything.
Yeah. So it's not, some weird new science or whatever. This is just what's happened over the course of history.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, though, there are ways to manipulate chickens to get them to continually lay more eggs, as in an egg like throughout the entire year.
Yeah.
But that's still not harmful for the chicken itself.
It just reduces the length of time in their life that they're gonna lay eggs.
Yeah, so a chicken has like a predetermined number of eggs that it's going to lay in its life. And once it hits that number, it's done.
Yeah. And that's just like humans. Like women, we have so many eggs. And as we get older, our body produces less and less of them. And then you go through menopause and all those different things.
Yeah, we don't need to, that's not
Yeah.
that's not this
But
podcast.
Every female has this.
Yeah.
It's not just chickens or humans, whatever. Like we all are going to have so many eggs.
Yeah. So I just had to correct that because I was like, I don't understand like where that information even came from. As somebody who raises chickens and knows a lot about chickens, and the quail are the same way. I actually had somebody today ask me like, well, could you get the quail to lay still? And I was like, yeah, they would definitely lay. He actually was wondering like if it was a heat related thing or like what it was that causes them to stop laying.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's the fact that they don't get enough sunlight.
Yeah.
Or that the sun hours aren't enough. But you could introduce artificial light, and they'll just continue to lay. And it's not bad for them, but at the same time, like we don't see a purpose in doing that. Yeah. Like there's no reason to rush through that.
Yeah. Hopefully next year, like we are out on eggs.
Yeah, we are officially at 0 egg production, which is not surprising because we're in the winter.
Yeah.
We're in the shortest time of the year.
And we have a very small flock of animals that don't lay a ton.
Yeah.
Like the quail, they are a lot more reliable than the chickens that we have, but they're still not crazy production.
I mean, the quail are as high production. They're 300 eggs a year, but you just get into that 64 days a year where they don't lay eggs, and that's where we're at right now because we're getting the December 21st is the shortest day of the year, and we're getting specifically close to that.
Yeah.
And so it won't be until sometime in January probably when we start seeing egg production pick up again.
Yeah.
Which is understandable and fine. It sucks that we didn't prepare for this.
Yeah, we gave away a lot of eggs.
Which is, we were trying to be nice and trying to kind of hopefully kind of induce a little bit of business where people who would be like, oh, these are really good. I would like more of these eggs.
Yeah.
And seek those out. But that didn't really happen.
I think this next year we're going to definitely plan better and preserve some of the eggs through water glassing like we talked about in last week's episode. I would love to be able to have a stockpile for the winter so that way we're not having to buy eggs. Like I went to the grocery store today to pick up a couple of things to get us through up until Thanksgiving because we need food before Thursday. And then into starting the next week, depending on how much leftovers we have. So I just wanted to make sure we had plenty of food. And I had to buy eggs.
And eggs are really expensive now.
Yeah. Like before, at least before COVID, I don't remember buying eggs last spring. I don't remember what that was like. But before COVID, at least, it was 89 cents for a dozen eggs at Aldi.
Yeah.
Today, $2.09. What?
Yeah.
What in the world?
For eggs. And then, like, we haven't bought eggs in months.
And these aren't, like, any special eggs. These are...
That's, like, the cheap eggs.
This is the cheap egg.
Yeah, like the basic...
The ones that I really would prefer not to buy right now. Like, but it's eggs to get me through this Thanksgiving holiday. And we don't eat a ton of eggs, but I'm baking a ton of stuff. So I need some eggs on hand.
Yeah, like we normally don't eat too many eggs. Like I was eating them every morning for a while, the quail eggs. But then I kind of slowed down because you kind of hit that wall. Yeah. Personally, you hit that wall.
Well, and that's with any food that you eat. Like we pick a thing and you kind of stick to it for a while and you're like, I'm done. Let's move on to the next thing.
Yeah. And so like I ate a ton of eggs, but then I kind of got out of it and I was having to, it was a weird thing because of medicine and stuff. So having to like make them in the morning, then heat them back up when I got to work and they were getting kind of rubbery and different things. And so, but I hadn't been eating them, but we do bake a lot now because of the season. And so we had to get eggs. And so it was just sucked to see how much they cost. But I want to go back real fast, email on the radio show, because they also got into like one of the guys was saying that, well, your only option really is to just not eat meat anymore. And I'm like, well, that's not really the case if you just want meat that is sustainably sourced or
Mm-hmm.
where the animals are taken care of and things like that. Because as people who are probably listening to this podcast know, there are plenty of farmers
Mm-hmm.
who take care of their animals. They
Yeah.
don't just use their animals, or like they don't mistreat their animals. It's not a giant production. Obviously, with store-bought chicken and with store-bought eggs
Mm-hmm.
and meat production on the mass scale that it is,
Mm-hmm.
and where people are producing meat in one area to sell to a massive demographic of
Mm-hmm.
people, not just like if there are ways that if we had the ability for a lot of small farmers to get started
Mm-hmm.
and providing meat and eggs for their local communities, things could be better.
Yeah.
But for those who, for the most part, that's not working right now in America. And what is working is commercial meat barns and things like that. And those animals aren't treated the best. And you can't treat them the best.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the plain and simple truth is that to produce meat and eggs at that scale, you're unable to have all the space in the world for these birds to live out their life. It's a sad truth. I don't like that it's true, but the simple truth is that it's true. That's just how it is. And unless people get from farmers, that's what you're going to get.
Yeah.
However, when you link up with farmers, so I told him, I said, if you find farmers in your area, these people are in Nashville, so they're surrounded by homesteaders. I mean, Rory Feek is in Columbia. Like all these people are in Columbia. There's massive, get-togethers between homesteaders there. That those people a lot of times have market gardens and market, growing meat for market.
Yeah.
And I was saying that if they could get involved in that, the truth of the matter is a lot of times you can save money over what you would get for the same quality of food. Now, if you want to buy the cheap bottom basic, like antibiotic filled and all these different things, meats, obviously that's probably going to be cheaper. But as far as like grass-fed, organic, the best quality things at the grocery store, you could probably save money by connecting with local farmers in your area, simply because you cut out the processing plants, the truck drivers, the retail associates. You cut out rent fees on all these different buildings that do these things. There's so much that's left out that the farmer doesn't have to do, that they don't have to charge quite as much. Obviously, this season that we're in right now, everything's getting more expensive. Even if you're feeding pellets, organic pellets or whatever, those are getting more expensive. It's getting more expensive to just do anything farm related, anything life related. Things are going to cost more, but I still think you can get a better deal from a farmer when you think about like price per quality.
Yes. And especially if you're concerned about how the animal was treated and how it was raised and what it was consuming, even. Like when you connect with a local farmer and get your meats that way, you're going to know what's happening. You can a lot of times even go visit the farm, because that's
some people would let you do that for sure, but I think
it just depends on where you're getting at, where you're getting your food.
I mean, if you're in New York and you want to get chicken from that guy, it's like a few acres farm or whatever on YouTube, like exactly how his animals are being treated, because he films it every day.
Yeah.
Right? Now, obviously, he's not able to do meat production in the wintertime, but that's just what it is. But yeah, I think it's like, I just wanted to share that knowledge. Sadly, I don't think it got read on any of the podcasts or the radio stuff. But if it just helps one person know, like, well, there's another option out there. Because the idea that we're forcing chickens to lay more than eggs than they want to seemed a little crazy to me.
Yeah. It's completely mind-boggling. Like, even as someone who doesn't really have a farm background, like growing up, I remember at one point, a grandfather had some chickens, and then there were little baby chicks running around. And there were bunnies at one point, but they didn't last long and they were gone.
And I wonder where they went.
There was a horse at one time, but they realized that we didn't have.
You understand where food comes from. That's what
I understood where food comes from, even though my experience with
it's mind-blowing to see how people don't understand how food works and like how animals are raised for food and things like that. Like people truly don't know.
I've heard of kids, like middle school kids, not knowing that milk comes from a cow.
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't know how, and there's nobody to, I hate to say it like this, but like, it's you as a parent that causes these things. Like as a kid, I remember like and where we live in Tennessee, there are multiple dairies.
Yes.
But like I remember as a kid, part of a school trip is we went to Mayfield, which is a milk place. They make ice cream and they make milk. And we went and we saw all this different stuff about where milk came from.
Yep.
I just don't see how you miss that growing up.
We took Oliver around 1.5 to me and your parents to Sweetwater Valley Farms, which is another milk production place, and they have different cheeses and things on site or whatever. But we got to tour their milking facility, and like Oliver, we talked with him about this, even though he's young.
Now, I will say, knowing where milk comes from is one thing. Knowing how that process worked was a whole other thing, because I didn't realize that the cows decide when they want to be milked. So they just hang out.
At that particular farm.
At that one. But they just the way they have it set up is that they have all the milking equipment and the stalls.
Yep, it's automated.
The cows are out in the field, and they just show up in the barn, and they walk into a stall whenever they're ready to be milked.
Yep, they'll even make a little line. Yeah. Like, they'll just line up, like, okay, I'm ready. And they'll go in there, and they'll get their little treats, and then the little robot comes and cleans the udders and milks them and does the whole thing. And then they go on their happy little way. It made me happy to see, like, how nice it was for them.
Yeah. But that shows you that there's a purpose in teaching young people, whether it's your kids, whether it's your kids' friends, whether it's family's kids if you don't have kids, getting them, letting people come to your farm, especially children, and letting them see. Now, that doesn't mean, processing chickens in front of them or something.
Yeah. But I think Oliver and I are going to leave the day that has to happen.
Letting them understand how it all works, though, and like that there are chickens, and chickens produce eggs, or there's different things, like teaching them how a farm works and what they eat, where it comes from, and like especially like if you're listening to this and you don't currently do any kind of farming, like if you plant a tomato and just teach your kid, like from the beginning, whether you go to the store and you buy this little tiny plant or you try to plant it from a seed and it sprouts and you're able to show the child what it is. That's a big deal, because apparently a lot of people aren't getting that, and they don't understand why there's not just copious amounts of food all the time. We live in a weird place in the U.S. where like we can get anything at any time of the year, whether it's in season here or not.
Yeah.
And we don't understand that there are ways that food just doesn't come normally. But I don't know. I think there's a lot that we can teach both children and adults, and apparently like doing a podcast like this or like exposing people through the stuff that you raised can really help people, because they truly don't understand. Like squab is apparently a very fancy food, I guess is what you would say. Like it's what rich people eat in different countries and things. A delicacy. Yes, and it's pigeon. But people know it as squab, so they don't know it's pigeon. Just like there's mahi-mahi in the fish world, and that was just a name given to another fish that was known as dolphin, but it's not the same dolphin. It's
not a dolphin.
Like a dolphin, like it's gray fins jumping out of the water. It's mahi-mahi. It's mahi-mahi, or dolphin that's like a golden green color. It's a very pretty fish. I don't know why they share the same name, but completely different fish. But people might know mahi-mahi, but then they don't know what that specific fish is and these different names. So I just find that it's interesting. But we talked about growing a tomato from seed. How are our seeds doing?
They're doing good. The beans are so tall.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
I'm a little worried about how big those are gonna be.
Yeah. That's crossed my mind. We'll cross that bridge when it comes. We'll see what happens. The lettuce is growing. There looks like there's gonna be some new little leaves sprouting from them. And the basil, it's a slow grower, but it's going. I still have one more mature plant in that same pot, and it's even got new leaves and stuff. So
yeah, things are actually like really picking up over there, and it's nice to see what kind of difference the light makes in the way that everything grows, because everything looks so much better than it did when we tried to grow it last year from the one-sided light source that we had in the bedroom or the office. So we had everything in that one-sided light source, and it grew leggy, and there was all those issues. But it seems like we're doing a lot better this year or this winter, just trying to do a few things just to see what was going to happen before, especially we invest in more than one grow light.
Yes.
To have, the optimal seed growing operation.
No, I do think things are, like, some things are a little bit leggy still. But I think it's because of how tall the light source is from it, because it's artificial. I don't know. It could just be that this is how it looks.
Yeah, I don't think it's leggy. I think like that looks better than what grew. The beans look better than what grew out in the yard.
Yeah,
to be honest.
They're looking great. But I'm really excited to see how this little indoor space grows. And if things continue to grow, we're probably going to have to grab another light to make space for everything
Yeah.
because those beans are going to overshadow
Yeah, I'm not really sure
everything.
what we're going to do about that, but we'll cross
Yeah.
that bridge when we come to it
Yep.
because it's not going to be long now before we have to figure that one out. So,
Yeah.
but it's exciting to see things growing though,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully we'll be able to eat something off of it,
Yeah.
in a month or two.
Yeah. Well, I put all the dates in on my phone, so we'll get little reminders when things are going to be ready to harvest. I think the soonest thing is going to be January 5th.
Yeah, that's not going to be too long to wait. I mean, still a while out. Obviously, that's in the new year, and we're not even out into December yet. But I don't think it's going to be too long before we're getting to enjoy it, and it's going to be fun just to watch it grow, nonetheless. I think that's more fun sometimes than harvesting is getting to watch how things develop and change, and become what they're going to be.
Yeah, I'm really loving watching everything grow. I check on them every day, and
It's hard not to where they
it's
are.
fun to see all the little new leaves come in, like their true leaves pop through and stuff. So I'm enjoying it. It's bringing a little sunshine to this very chilly winter that we're having already.
It's been very cold, and it's actually like shockingly cold. I think that they said that like the high was 30 degrees cooler than it normally is this time of year.
Yeah.
A few days already. And it was 20 degrees this morning, which for us in November, that's really cold.
Yeah.
Now, thankfully, it's going to be getting warmer again this week. I think like we're going to be getting back into the 60s for the highs.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this last week was really cold.
Yeah, like I had to whip out the gloves.
Mm-hmm.
It was bad. Whew.
Yeah, it's not as bad as we heard people saying that it was, but it was still pretty cold.
Yes, we heard a lot of people claim that it was Arctic.
Yes, we took a trip this weekend that was like a day trip, and it was actually the longest day that's been away since having all the animals.
Yes.
The longest that we spent away from any of them. We were going for basically like 12 hours, going straight that whole time.
Yes.
We left at 7 and got back home at 7. Now, for me, that's not that abnormal from when I've worked overtime and things. I guess I've been way longer than that. But there's not been a time where we've both been away from everybody for that long.
Like, I had to let the chickens out in the dark.
Yeah. Normally, we let them at least, be getting to daylight before we let them out.
I let the sun break over the hill before I run out there to them. Just in case of predators still out or whatever. Not that we've had an issue, thank goodness, but
yeah, and they're not going to get.
They're not awake yet normally, so I like to wait till the sun comes up and they're like, "Hey, all right, let's go."
Mm-hmm.
But an interesting thing happened this morning talking about letting chickens out and whatnot. Their water was frozen.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Saying that.
I had the worst time opening it to add more water in because it was frozen. So that was an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I have not experienced before. And I'm sure more experienced farmers are laughing at me, being amazed that it was frozen and 20 degrees this morning, but it hadn't been frozen yet.
Yeah. I don't know how the other stuff didn't freeze, to be honest with you, being that cold, but thankfully it seemed like it didn't. So
yeah. And I still have some plants out here on the porch that are looking good. Like
I've been amazed by strawberries with it being as cold as it has been. Like they have really held up.
Yeah.
Like they look fine.
Well, in our zone, they are perennial.
Yeah.
So I mean, they'll just hang around.
I expect them to be like other perennials though, that'll just like kind of the leaves will die out.
Yeah.
Or they may go dormant and then come back, but they look great still.
Yep.
Even though.
And they're producing still. Like I pulled off 2 strawberries last week.
Yeah, which is surprising. I mean, they just continued to produce. Like the hottest part of the summer, obviously they kind of slowed down, but then once it got cold again, they started putting out strawberries again. Yeah. Which I'm not going to complain about.
Like you had thought earlier in this year that we were going to get rid of all of the grow bags that we have right there in that area, and even just ex-nay the strawberries and just start again with new ones, not even worry about transplanting them. But they're doing so great.
Yeah, and suppose they're supposed to do better the next year, right? So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I'm excited for them.
We still have a lot of cleanup to do in those other grow bags. But
because everything else is done for now, especially after this last cold snap. Those peppers are...
I wanted to see if we could overwinter them, but Bree didn't never really want to go down the path. So.
Well, it was just going to require a lot because they would have to go down there to water them and down to our basement, which is outside around this side of the house in to the basement type thing.
Basically, it was work she didn't want to do.
Yeah. I was already doing other work. We got other things going.
Yeah.
Maybe next year, once we've got the basement a little bit better organized, because that's going to be one of our goals is organization, which on any farm, you need it.
Oh, yeah.
You need it.
It just takes so much stuff to be able to do everything that you need to do, whether it's raising animals or vegetables and things like that. It requires a lot of
things,
a lot of stuff. So yeah.
And then we've also got a ton of scrap wood from previous owners here and from our own doing. Like
we've talked about that. We've got the pallets and different things that we need to deal with, and but that shouldn't make it too far into spring before we've got the raised beds and everything built. So
hopefully, just as we enter in January, we'll go ahead and get things built and whatnot, so that way we're ready. Because hopefully in January we'll be able to plant some potatoes. That way we can have a potato harvest.
That would be nice.
That would be nice. I would love it so much. Oh, one thing that I don't know that I've shared with you is I planted some garlic out on the porch.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and it's got little sprouts coming up.
Yep,
and it's just like I had a clove of garlic that I had bought from the store to use to cook and use in salsa and whatnot, but it sat a little long because we had other ones or whatever, and that particular thing of garlic got pushed to the side, and it was already kind of sprouting just a little bit through, and I was like, I'll stick it in this pot and we'll see what happens. I got 2 little sprouts, so I might get 2 things of garlic because this is the time of year to plant it.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. I'm happy to see what'll come from it. Hopefully we get something.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were gone for our longest day yet, and so that was an adventure. But the animals seem to do fine, and it's all about preparation and trying to make things as easy on yourself as possible. And I kind of want to do a whole episode upon the idea of setting yourself up for success in the farm, which means doing things in a way that make it easier. Because while in raising animals and food and different things are enjoyable, at times you're not going to want to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know any other way to say that. Sometimes you're just tired. I mean, if you're like us and you have a child and different life things going on constantly, plus like
full-time job,
or if one or both of you work full-time, or however your life situation is, if you're single or whatever, but like if you're working full-time and trying to do this, there's going to be those days where you're just tired, you're done, you don't want to do that extra bit of work when you get home. And so you've got to set yourself up for success. And we found ways to do that. But like on leaving the night before, we feed our animals at night, mainly because that's when the quail lay. And so it's easier to collect the eggs at night before they've had a chance to like walk all over them and potentially break them or poop on them and different things. And so we'll go at night, just about right after they've laid, really.
Yeah.
And so we can collect the eggs and then feed everybody. So I just fed everybody extra. So I put more in there than I would normally put in there. So that way, knowing that we were going to get home late the next night, we could just go down there, make sure everybody's still good, and then lock them up and be good to go. And that's exactly what we did. And then Sunday, the next morning when we got up, we were able to go out there and feed people as needed fed and things like that and water them. But we had given them enough preemptively that they were going to be fine all that next day. And obviously we had to let them out that morning.
Yeah.
So we were able to peek in and make sure people still had food, which they did. Because we've got a pretty good idea at this point about what the average amount is that everybody eats.
Yeah.
So it's easy to guess.
The quail are a little picky. They want the top crumbles, and they don't want to go through that finer feed at the bottom of it. But they will.
Yeah.
They'll do it if they're hungry. So they weren't ever going to be without. It just made them hold off on that finer stuff.
Yeah. It's interesting because it makes you learn a lesson too, though, because like I heard somebody mention one time that they prefer to feed pellets over crumbles because they feel like there's less waste. And I didn't really understand what that meant until you start dealing with the quail and their crumbles. And there's like that fine powder that just nobody wants to eat. And so it's it does feel like you're wasting a bunch of feed when there's every time you feed, there's powder in there. You know. But it is what it is. Yeah.
I mean, you live and you learn, and you figure out what works for you and your farm.
Yeah, you find easy ways to do things that make life just that little bit easier. And then that's when how you're able to go on trips like that where you can leave for the whole day, come back tired, and not feel like you have to overexert yourself taking care of everything. And that can be just as easy as like the strategic placement of water or
Yeah.
food and things like that to be able to take care of your animals. But yeah, we'll definitely have to get into that deeper on another podcast because I feel like we could do a whole episode just talking about ideas that can make life that much easier.
Yeah.
When it comes to, taking care of your farm.
Yeah, and we've already discussed some ideas to help make things a little bit easier on ourselves here where we're at, but we've not gone anywhere with them, whatever, because it would make it easier, but is it necessary?
What's a cost thing? Because like containers, the biggest thing is containers for feed and placing them right with the animals.
Well,
but you have to have something that's going to be sturdy enough in order to keep rats and mice and things from getting into that feed. And to do that, you're talking about spending like $30 or $50 a container. And that's like 4 different containers. Yeah. So that adds up pretty fast. Obviously, it's not that insane of amount of money. But when you're trying to save money and hopefully one day be profitable, it's kind of hard to just drop that much money in one go.
Well, that, and we were also talking about a watering system to where we wouldn't have to worry about their water so much.
The rabbits, yeah. And the quail.
So there's just different things. So I think
it's not that big of a deal right now because everybody's drinking less water because it's not hot outside.
Yeah.
So
it just got put on the back burner.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that we can water almost like every other day versus every day because they're just not drinking as much.
Yep.
So, and that just makes sense. I mean, they're not hot, they're not sweating, they're not. I don't know if they sweat, but they're
not exerting a lot.
Yeah, they're not needing to cool utilizing water as they did in the summertime, so they just don't need it as much.
Yep.
Something I don't think we've talked about on the podcast too much, but I really love books. Like really love books. And constantly I'm trying to get more books. I wish I had more time to read books, but that's just not how life works. I told Bree the best gift she could give me for Christmas was a coupon book with coupons I could give to just be able to go read and not have to feel bad about it. And it's funny because even if you just try to read while other things are going on, I was sitting here earlier while like dinner was being made and things like that, and she hadn't said a word to me. And so like without her even noticing, I picked up my book and I sat down and I opened it and I start to read like the first word, and she immediately starts saying things to me. And
we have a sixth sense for this thing. Like,
kills me.
Either one of us pick up a book and the other one's gonna become Chatty Cathy.
Yep.
Like it happens no matter if we're together or apart. Even like if you're at work and I'm at home and I'm like, oh, this is a good time to read a book. All of a sudden, this is when you text me. This is when my phone blows up.
And it's not ever like just like a hey text. It's like, oh, hey, can you do this? Or I need this. Or hey, what's this thing that we blah, blah, blah. And then so when you don't get that answer, you're annoyed.
Yep.
And, it's all exacerbated. Like today, I'm in the complete transparency of everything. Like just not in a great mood right now. Like even getting through this is a little bit of an annoyance. But walked in the house. USA they tied with Wales, which might as well be as good as losing in the World Cup soccer, in case you don't know what's going on.
I had to ask because I'm not a sports person.
I don't get into too much, but I like it on like the world stage. It's just like the Olympics or something like that. Like I wouldn't normally watch soccer, but we were watching some of it today at work, and then the US played at 2:00 today, and I was like, they were almost going to win the game until like the very end, pretty much. A stupid foul gave a penalty kick, and of course Wales scored, which tied the game up, which is just kind of a letdown. And then when I walk in the door, knock something over, the grill was messed up, and like all these other things compile. And then so you sit down to read, and then it's like something comes up, and thankfully I just ate that one. I didn't get upset or anything. She probably didn't even realize that I had tried to read until just now. But it's like those times when everything just compiles.
My back was to him.
Like yeah.
Had no clue.
But I wish I had more time to read, obviously. But I really do love books, and we're always getting more books because there's just so much information in books. And that's what I really want to talk about is I think that books are still the best resource regarding basically anything that you want to do. Because as somebody who does podcasts, who has done videos, informative videos in the past, who's also, does writes on the internet and things like that, like it quickly becomes apparent like that books truly are the best way to present information because in a podcast like this, you can miss so much.
Yes.
Like you can cover a subject and you can research that subject and know so much about that subject and then not be able to articulate and clearly detail everything in a sit-down conversation because either you get rabbit trailed like we often do, or because you just are so busy telling one key fact of information that you aren't able to tell the other fact.
Yeah, you just run out of time.
Yeah.
If you were to read a book out loud, to get all that information out there, it would take hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, I mean, like that's like if you look at audiobooks, they'll be like a standard size novel is probably like 2.5, 3 hours, maybe more than that. And there's no way to do that in a YouTube video or things like that. And a lot of times, if you watch certain people's YouTube videos, like they make great videos and they're interesting videos, but at the same time, like it seems like they're always just teaching you almost the same thing.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot of the same things. They never get into certain deeper principles.
Mm-hmm.
And you're able to learn a lot from YouTube and things like that. But you'll never learn the deep minutia and like why, or even certain key pieces of information. Like one thing that I had struggled to find the information on was like our Angora rabbit.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know, could I shear the rabbit in winter? Well, the answer to that's obviously yes. You can shear it whenever you want to, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know like how much of that fur do they need to keep themselves warm. I've Googled it. I've watched YouTube videos about them. I've read tons of care sheets about them, but nobody said its direct number. Well, I've mentioned the book before, but I've got a book called Plain and Simple Rabbit Production. And in that book, they talk about all kinds of different rabbits, but they do have a chapter on Angoras. And in that book, I was finally able to find the key piece of information I needed, that being that they need at least 1 inch of their fur to stay warm all winter long, even into the coldest temperatures. All they need is 1 inch of fur. And so now knowing that, I know if we decided to shear Rose, that how much of that fur that we would be needing to leave behind.
Yeah.
And so, but it took me forever to figure out that information. And thankfully it was in that book because I just couldn't find it anywhere else. And it's not that people aren't giving you all the information that they have, as much as it's just so easy to miss things.
Yeah.
I mean, even in this podcast, we've got to the end of it and been like, oh, I meant to mention this part of that or this, that. And you just can't go back and insert it and make it, flow.
Yeah, it's just not conducive.
And it's impossible to give you could go to every farm talk you want to at like a convention and you're still not going to get every piece of information that you need or that you could get in just one book.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like, and one book allows somebody, there's often like when you write a book, you do a table of contents, you break down what you want to talk about, you read over it multiple times before putting it out. I don't believe that people are putting out false information on their YouTube channels or podcasts. However, I do think that certain information can easily be left out or overlooked without the ability to easily go back in and add it without messing up the whole continuity of the video. And so I think by reading books on certain subjects that you're interested in, you open yourself up to gain so much more information that these people have.
Yeah.
And these people that you like so much often have books, like Justin Rhodes has books, Joe Salatin has books, tons of people have books on these different subjects. And so by picking those up, you're able to gain the full knowledge of that person. It's almost, we've talked about this before, but it's almost like people who go to church but don't ever read the Bible.
Yeah.
And it's like you're missing so much by not just having read the entire Bible for yourself and continually reading the Bible for yourself, because there's so much information in that a pastor simply can't do it. Not to mention that a pastor at a church has to continually give that that same information again and again, repeating themselves, because new people constantly are coming that need the information that you already have. And that's really the same thing. I mean, like there are new people constantly looking to get into farming who need to know the basics about chickens. And it's weird, and it's kind of funny as YouTube's gone on, for me personally, like there was that time when YouTube was just getting like, where it wasn't new anymore, but people were just getting like really good at YouTube. And so, 5 years ago, you would watch YouTube videos and you really didn't want to watch a YouTube video older than like maybe 2 years because the quality wouldn't be good, or, people just didn't know how to make a good video. Yeah. And sometimes I still fall into that in my head. But now you can go watch a video that's like 6 years old and it's like, wow, this is still a really great, the production quality is high, the information's great. But you fall into that mindset of just wanting to watch new videos. Yeah. So when people search for a subject on chickens, they want to find the newest video on chickens, whether or not that video has the newest information or whatever.
Yeah, and I fall into that as well. Like if I'm looking up a particular subject, I look to see what video is covering the subject that I'm looking up, and then figure out which one's the newest, because I want the most up-to-date information. But it's funny that you brought up how books are truly the best way to get information regarding different things, because one of the gardener YouTubes that I watch, she just mentioned different books to get gardeners as Christmas presents.
Oh yeah.
She was like, "There's truly no replacement for a book. Like, there's YouTube
and that lady's got millions of subscribers. I mean, like she's on it constant,
yeah.
right? So
well, this isn't Garden Answers Lady. This is the one in California.
oh, okay.
Yeah, but she's new and upcoming. Like, she got invited to Proven Winners Influencers Club.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Super proud of her because she just started gardening in the last 2 years.
But it's true. I mean, like if you want to learn about a subject, you buy a book, because even watching the most comprehensive videos, you're never going to be able to learn all that you need to learn about a subject. Because there's just so much that is in a subject. So like if somebody wants to teach you
like information.
Yeah, if you want to learn the most you can about chickens, you should get a book on chickens, because you can watch tons of videos. But what you'll find, especially like because you're going to not just one person isn't going to sit down and give you the comprehensive guide of chickens through a 30-part series either.
Yeah.
So what you're going to do is you're going to start reading tons of books, or you're going to start watching tons of videos about chickens, and what you're going to find is 20 different people telling you the same things about chickens, except maybe a few different things here and there.
Yeah.
But it's so much easier to look at a book that's been edited, it's been read over multiple times by the author, that's read over by editors, read over by peers,
and publishers.
Like before a book is published, I would say that you're talking about 20 knowledgeable people have read through this, maybe more.
And there's probably a test group, even like all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, depending on who published it and how large of a publication it was. Like people aren't just like if you're buying ebooks. Obviously, anybody can just throw out an ebook on Amazon, and you've got to take all that information with a grain of salt. But if you look at books by reputable people through reputable publishers, you're going to find really in-depth information. And I just think that it's worth reading books because I don't think enough people do it anymore. I think people overlook books. And by watching video, I know that you zone out easier. Or if you're listening to audiobooks even, like it's so easy. Like if I try to listen to audiobooks, I can gain some information, but it's hard for me to focus on an audiobook the same way you can focus on a written book. Because it's easy for me personally, like it's like that inner dialogue starts taking place. And so like you start crowding out the podcast or the book. And that's why I can listen to a podcast more than once, is because chances are I've not heard all of it because I got distracted, started thinking about other things.
Yeah, there's been a few different podcasts that we've listened to multiple times, like many, many times, just because
of what you're saying. Are like watching your favorite show again and stuff.
But it was just interesting to me that like that was her brand new video for today, and it was on your mind, but you had no connection to that video.
Yeah.
About books being a great source. And back in the day before, adulthood truly set in, and marriage and raising a child and all this stuff, I love to read books. Like I would stay up all night trying to finish a book and absolutely love it. I still love it. It's just, again, trying to make that time for it. Like you were saying, how you were wanting a coupon book to have that guilt-free chance to go back and read and relax and absorb.
Yeah, and one thing that's really on the book thing for me is, as a Christian, like there's certain figures that stick out. I think C.S. Lewis is one of those for a lot of people. And I read a book by C.S. Lewis, I guess, kind of like an autobiography type thing. But he was talking about his childhood and, how he grew up. And obviously he grew up in a time that was much different than ours because of when he was born and things like that. But he talks about how there were books everywhere. Like his parents almost were book hoarders there, and they had no boundaries on what he was allowed to read even as a child, because they weren't of faith at that time really. But he came to faith later when he was in college and had met people like Tolkien, which it's very interesting to look at his life. But he talks about how it changed him, and I think what really developed him into a writer was being surrounded by those books, and there just being books everywhere on various subjects and things that he could read. And that's kind of been part of my mindset. Is one, I want to grow and be wide-ranged and, know things and be able to adapt different information. Because I bet you'd be surprised what you could learn from books that might not even have to do with farming, that you could adapt that knowledge into farming. But at the same time, you could also provide for your kids the ability to learn so many different things without ever having to leave your home. Now, obviously, you want to take them places and let them leave your home, but the adventures that can be gone on in books are so much different than technology and TV.
Yeah.
And I just think it's such a better thing. We're kind of getting close to the end of the podcast, though, so I kind of want to shift gears again.
Okay.
Because I already kind of have an idea what I want to name the podcast because it's more of a question than anything. But this week's Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
By the time this podcast comes out, we'll already have had Thanksgiving.
Yes.
A lot of things are going to happen before next week's podcast, and so I'll go through those kind of quickly before I get into what I was going to say. But like tomorrow's grooming day, so I've got to deal with Rose, the Angora rabbit, because it's been a little while since she was last brushed out. Not longer than she's supposed to be, but longer than we had been doing from when we just got her. So I had to brush her out, but also we're going to have to give the dog a bath because we're going to take her along with FamLee for Thanksgiving, and so I don't want her stinking like she does now, which she's never really stinked before.
Yeah.
But I don't know what she's got into in the yard, but she's got a stench about her, and so we're gonna scrub her down. So I'm sure that's gonna be a fun day for me tomorrow because you're not gonna be here in the afternoon. So.
Oliver and I are gonna go off with my mom and hit up Build-A-Bear.
Yes, and so I'll be dealing with the dogs and things like that. But then obviously Thanksgiving, and Bree's got a whole laundry list of things that she's got to do for that.
Yes.
Then Friday, I haven't talked to you about this, but I think Friday, besides maybe a little bit of Black Friday, mostly for Oliver, because we've pretty much got everybody else's Christmas taken care of, we will work on the vegetable garden bed, which means finally putting in all the manure and the compost and everything like that, and actually have that done, which will be a great feeling once we can get there. Yeah. And I just don't want to wait any longer. I want to be able to get those nutrients on the soil and be done with that.
Plus, our little compost bucket is pretty full.
Yes. Turns out we really should be doing more composting.
Yeah.
Which is another thing that I'd like to talk about is just the different ways that you can do things with your food. And then we've got friends coming over Saturday, which will really be like, since the farm operation's been in full swing, I guess, that we've had people over. Because really the last time that we had like people over to stay for a while was at your birthday, and that was in March. So we really didn't have any of what we have right now going on in March. We had the dream and the plan, but we hadn't acquired anything the last time that we had even like a family here with their kids and things like that. So that'll be interesting. We've had our family here, but we've just not had friends that have kids around the same age as Oliver here for an extended period of time. So that'll be interesting to see how they interact with the animals and what everybody thinks of all the stuff. So I'm sure there's going to be a wide variety of stories. But kind of the weird thing that we're planning on doing is that the more I thought about it, I was like, I don't really just want to have Thanksgiving and not do something for all the animals. And so we were out a couple weekends ago and bought a specific dog food for Rory. So she eats kibble. Her coat's still amazing looking for all those. She's got a beautiful, shiny black coat for all those people who think that only raw diets are able to provide
and she's soft and normally doesn't smell. But again, she's wallowed in the leaves after they've been yucky.
Yeah, she's got into something. But so normally she's on kibble, but we went ahead and bought her basically the same thing that she eats as kibble, which is sweet potatoes and salmon. We bought that in a wet food.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure she's going to love that. That'll be the first time. We don't let her eat any people food. She might get a little tiny crumb every once in a while off the floor.
Mostly because of Oliver.
Yes, but so she normally doesn't get anything, so that's going to be great for her. The cat obviously gets wet food periodically, so we got him just a different one that sounded fun. I don't even remember what the names of them were.
Yeah.
But then we're going to have treats for the chickens, and for the rabbits, we're going to give them like whole carrots and some other stuff. And so everybody's just going to have a nice special Thanksgiving meal. And I don't know if that's kind of a weird thing for doing that on the farm or not. Like, I don't know if other people are like trying to lavish their farm animals. Maybe it's because we don't have as much, but at the same time, even if we had more, I feel like some kind of treats, whether that's like some kind of alfalfa thing. Like they make goat treats and cow treats apparently, which I did not know cow treats were a thing, but they are. But they make all these different treats, and I'm like, well, why not do something nice for those animals? Because regardless of if it's Thanksgiving, if it's Christmas, you're out there dealing with them anyways.
Yeah.
And so you might as well do something kind of fun for them. Obviously, I'm probably not going to get the chickens and the quail presents for Christmas like we will the dog or the cat, mainly just to give them toys to distract them.
Yeah, we need to restock our toy supply.
Yes, but I just thought that would be something fun to do. But I just kind of wondered, does that make us weird for doing that on the farm, for making a Thanksgiving meal for all of our animals? And we actually bought 2 cans for the dogs, and obviously the rabbits and things are easy, so they'll have a Christmas meal as well this
Like,
year.
any other farms do that? Let us know.
Yeah, I don't know if
Like,
that's weird or not.
I would love to know if that's truly a thing, or if we're just some farm newbies who are being silly.
Well, I think we are being silly, but it's also fun to do things like that, and it's good husbandry, right?
Well, I mean, we're thankful for them.
Yeah.
Why not spoil them a little bit on a day that we're supposed to be expressing our thanks?
Yeah, and just give them something nice. That way that they can have, and just something that they will enjoy it either way.
Yeah.
And it's not something that they normally get. So, so I just think that'll be pretty good for them. I don't know. But I think it's fun. If we're not weird for that, then maybe I'm weird for writing into a radio show. So the title of this podcast is going to work either way. You just let me know in the comments. But we hope you guys really enjoyed this episode. It's a few minutes shorter than what we would normally do, but I think we're just tired and really just needing to catch up after weeks of overtime and different things going on the weekends and all that stuff. So hopefully Thanksgiving's going to be a little bit of relaxing.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
It might be for one of us, and so that's important.
But yeah, for the one who's been working outside of the house for extremely long hours over the last month or so, I think it should be fairly relaxing.
Yeah, hopefully I can have a little bit of a change and just be able to slow down a little bit and maybe read some books and come back to you guys with some good information that you haven't heard before. Maybe that's what my lot in life will be, to find information and share the pieces I haven't heard through YouTube videos.
So what book are you going to try to read if you get a chance?
The one I'm reading right now is the one that we just got the other day. And it's about pilgrims. And so I didn't plan on buying this book, but we were at a thrift store, and it was $1, and it's Christian classics. I bought 2 different books that are in the same collection, but the one is about Plymouth Rock and the pilgrims and things like that. And I'm like, well, I've got to read as much of this as I can before Thanksgiving, because it's too coincidental not to just get as much of this information as I can, right?
Yep.
Turns out pilgrims did not always wear white and black like they're depicted in pictures. That was just for Sabbath days. That was an interesting piece of information.
Yeah.
And they weren't perfect people, which I don't know why we would ever assume that they were perfect people.
They're humans. How could they be perfect?
I think it's because they went by Puritans. And the Puritan concept, like the idea that I had of Puritans would have been that they were trying to be extremely pure. Yeah. Because Puritan, I think the name seems, from what I've read in that book so far, the book is, I'm really just in the introduction right now, which is kind of sad, but I mean, I've only had it for like a day. Yeah. But I'm only in the introduction right now, and what it's going to do is it's going to open up into an actual written account from the governor of Plymouth, and like all that he experienced through his, like, helping settle the island and what they actually went through and what they experienced. But from what I've read so far in the introduction, Puritans simply retained to the fact that, unlike the Catholic Church at the time, that had created man-made views of Scripture, they wanted to have a pure view of Scripture, removing all of the fluff and only going based off what is in the Bible. And so that was what the name really came for. But I think oftentimes we think of Puritans as people striving to be pure, and above the influence and things like that. And I mean, you could say that a lot of Christians like us try to do that, but obviously we're human and we fall, and it's thanks to God's grace that we're able to get back up again.
Yeah. The goal is to be perfect, but we understand that we're not perfect, and we just need to try our best every day.
Yeah, I always liked what John said. This isn't my verse for the day, but I always liked what John said in 1 John chapter 2, verses like 1 and 2. But he talks about, I write unto you that you sin not, but if you do sin, remember that we have an advocate with the Father who takes away our sins. And so that's just a great thing, is like, try to not sin, do your best to not sin, but understand that you're human and eventually you will stumble and you fall, but it's about how you fall and the posture in which you fall too. I like to think about falling onto your knees. Yeah. So like instead of trying to catch yourself and probably causing more damage, it's better to fall onto your knees where you rely on God to help you get back up. Yep. Totally not where we were going with that. But I found the verse of the day today to be, have the irony in it, because this podcast is about farming, and that's that's what we're here to talk about mostly. Yeah. But at the same time, the Bible says, and then he told them, go out into all the world and preach the good news to everyone. That being Mark 16 and 15. And at the same time, no matter what we're doing in life, no matter what our passions are, what our projects are, or what we're trying to share, at the end of the day, there's nothing more important than sharing the gospel, and that's one extra thing that we hope to do in this podcast.
Yeah.
So I hope that you guys have a great Thanksgiving. I hope you really take the time to be thankful. One pro tip that I'll give you is that things aren't going to go the way that you hope they're going to go.
Nope.
Think about that now. Accept it. Accept that people are going to be late.
Accept that kids are going to be grumpy.
Or feisty or wild because they're kids. Accept that food may not turn out the way that you want it to. Accept that something's going to happen, and don't let that ruin your day.
Yeah.
Instead, focus on the good. Focus on the great things that God has done for you. We're all still here. We're all still getting a chance to do our best every day. And we just need to enjoy the time that we have together, because we don't know, when that time is going to end and when somebody's going to leave us. And so I think that the best thing you can do is just accept that it may not be the best Thanksgiving, but it also is probably not going to be the worst Thanksgiving. And if you can look past the little things, those little mistakes, those little things that happen are going to be the things that you look back on and laugh about 5-10 years from now, and that are going to make future things so much more fun. So just accept what happens, and if you got to order pizza, just order the pizza and be grateful for it.
Yeah.
Or
Chinese. I've got Chinese on the brain where we've not ate processed food.
Yeah. Well, anyways, y'all have a great rest of your day, and God bless.
Go.